Mr Chair.
I call Grant.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. The title of this bill is an anodyne one, isn't it? The Taxation Budget Measures Bill. But I really think we need to look deeper than just that title to see what this bill really means. And I think a more appropriate title would be the Taxation Cake Stalls for Crayons Bill, because that's what's going to be happening in early childhood centres all around New Zealand. All around New Zealand, Ms Goodhue, early childhood centres all around New Zealand are now thinking, how are we going to make up this deficit? Because the priority in this bill, tax cuts for the wealthy, not early childhood education. Those centres all around New Zealand know, the parents in the New Zealand Herald this morning all know, their early childhood education is at risk. Their early childhood education is at risk because those cuts, $400 million over 4 years, $400 million over 4 years will have an impact on the quality of early childhood education services. It will have an impact on access to early childhood education. And what could be more important than that? Because this isn't a budget where Bill English came down and said, we're in a recession, we have to pull back. No, this was a budget where he thought, I can be generous. Who will I be generous to? I'll be generous to people who've already had 3 tax cuts from this government. I'll be generous to them. I'll take money off early childhood education. And Mr Chair, that is an absolute outrage because the options now available to early childhood centres are, well, they could probably get rid of their trained teachers. Well, what good will that do for early childhood education in New Zealand? Or, potentially, they might have to cut back on hours. Or they might have to actually try and raise some money some other way. And we had someone on the news last night saying, we will be having to do fundraising to buy paper. Fundraising to buy paper. So that's why this bill should be called the Taxation Cake Stalls for Crayons Bill, Mr Chair, because that is effectively what this taxation bill will be doing. Forcing those early childhood centres, rather than focusing on the quality of their education that they're delivering, rather than ensuring that the trained teachers are there, giving children in New Zealand the best possible start in life, they're going to have to be out there raising money or cutting back on quality teachers. Or, in many cases, some parents actually simply won't be able to enrol their children. And that is what has happened. That's what people are already saying in the New Zealand Herald today. Indeed, another title, Mr Chair, could be the Taxation Field of Broken Promises Bill. Because let's be absolutely clear. National went into the election in 2008 saying no increase in GST. And Mr Key can dance on the head of that pin and say, oh, I was talking about if we had a deficit, I was talking this way. He stared down the barrel of that camera, Mr Chair, and told New Zealanders that there would be no increase in GST when National came into government. And that promise has been broken, and that's why this bill should be renamed the Taxation Field of Broken Promises Bill. Another promise made there was that there would be no borrowing for tax cuts, Mr Chair, and that is exactly what we're seeing today. And if we are going to, it is Dr Smith, and if we are going to borrow money, which we may well need to do, should it not be in things where we are getting a return on that investment? Should it not be in making sure that we have investment in education, research and development, real investment, not breaking back down, but real proper investment in ensuring that we have research and development that grows company, that grows our economy. So that's yet another broken promise within this. And then there's the broken promise around public services, Mr Chair. Another reason why this bill should be renamed. This government came in saying that it would cap but not cut public services. It has continually done that. And in this budget, Bill English tells us there's $1.8 billion of low priority spending. That low priority spending is in tertiary education, it's in early childhood education, it's in health. That's what this government thinks is low priority spending. Mr Chair, that is another broken promise and another reason to rename this bill, because public services in New Zealand have to be rebuilt time and time again by Labour governments, coming on the back of national governments who know that they can get away with undermining those public services while delivering tax cuts. This is not a budget about the long-term future of New Zealand. This is a budget about short-term political thinking from the National Party. It is not good for the economy of New Zealand. It is not good for the society of New Zealand. We could also rename the bill, Mr Chair, the Taxation Rob Peter to Pay Paul Bill, literally Pay Paul Reynolds Bill. And that's in fact what this bill will be doing, because what it does is ensure that people like Paul Reynolds, who have already benefited significantly from pay rises and tax cuts, once again are the main beneficiaries of this bill. not the strugglers in New Zealand, not the people who've been facing higher power prices, now facing higher GST.
Thank you, Mr Chair.